Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. Now, this video is very important. It's about how there are a bunch of social clubs, fraternities, and governing class groups, corporate groups, that are following a kind of psychotic belief system. They believe in the self-direction of humanity. Now, you might think that's not a big deal. They believe that they do not have to care about morality, that they should go for their goals. They see morality as magically, constraining them and restricting them to certain courses of action, and they do not wish to allow for that. Obviously, immediately what they're doing is wrong, right? Because they don't care about morality, and what they're doing is not worthwhile. Okay, if it's wrong, it's not worthwhile because it's not going to be very fulfilling. For example, most people are smart enough to put together that being a porn star and having sex that way does not compare to making love. Okay, this is a pretty potent example because it has to do with nature and the essence of nature and trying to get to it and trying to truly live your life in reality. Okay. Natural, supernatural, right? Being a man and a superman, you can only achieve being a superman, and not in a cheesy way, but a great man, by being a man in the boundaries of being a man. And a man has to put morality first. That's how you put God first. You put morality first. All good, all knowing, all powerful, which means you have to be all good, pure. So with Masonry, what you've seen is many years, hundreds and hundreds of years of evidence of who they are. Who are the Freemasons? Well, who are white people? What was feudalism? What is capitalism? What is communism? These are parts of the fruit of Freemasonry. Marx was a very Masonic-like person. Engels, why? Maybe they were Masons. Probably, right? But what's important is we know them by their works. Masons have been building the building of society, right? Corruption for a long time. The feudal governments were corrupt, the communist governments, the capitalist governments. Ever since the beginning of Masonry, we cannot point to a single decent government that the Masons have their hat in. And since no servant can be greater, we know that from the Bible, right? No servant can be greater, then they're no greater than the governments that are allowing them to build in their society. That's simple. We know they believe in the self-direction. We know that they're in rebellion against God. Now, some of you might say, well, the works aren't enough. They're not enough, right? What if on a fluke they're actually trying to make the world a better place? Well, that's an important argument to make. It's very important that you ask that and that you answer it. Well, so now let's look inside of them, right? There's a reason why people have certain ways about them, right? Animus in animation, meaning spirit. So Gargamel and Dick Dastardly and Lex Luthor, they have certain spirits that they're in, that are like the core character of these people. So when we look at Freemasons, we see that they're in a kind of Western boarding school, sort of military officer, sort of fancy restaurant spirit. Okay? A lot of these guys were wearing wigs when that was popular. Okay, some still are, and in certain court systems in the world, at least in one, I think in England. We know that they have a spirit of rejecting God and morality because we can see it in them. Now, bear with me now. If I was to go to a boarding school and was to see one of these teachers and say, hey, it never occurred to you that you're kind of upholding white social norms and you're putting that before God. Okay? They might either look guilty and say, you're right, or they might be offended, okay, and say, you don't know what you're talking about. Both of those spirits, those ideas, are the ideas of rejecting correction and instruction from God. Same thing with a Catholic school or any Christian boarding school, if such a thing exists, other than Catholic schools. If we went there and said, okay, do you know that what you're doing is actually upholding white social norms, right? Your church system, your schools, the way about you, the spirit you're in. How come you're very similar to the Freemasons with your spirit? How come you're very similar to boarding schools, to military academies? If you're in God's spirit and this was a holy school system, why aren't you people holy? Why are you stricklers for the rules? Why are you social norm fanatics? Okay? 1 John 2:15, do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. So you love the world enough to merge with it and to live in the social norms of it. You didn't overcome. You didn't transcend. Okay? They'd probably be pissed. Especially when a mulatto guy telling them that, right? Now some of them probably laugh like a there's the gaming Mason. There's the angry, lashing out Mason. There's the gaming Mason, kind of, oh, ha, 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 kind of thing. And they say, okay, well, that's because of X, Y, and Z. They kind of laugh and geek. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Kind of in their own way, right? Now, it's hard to represent every type of white person and whitewashed person when they act like that. So we know Freemasonry is a white privilege system that includes whitewashed people to a certain degree. And there's some lodges still, according to some Masons themselves, that are white only. After all these years of desegregation, they're like, no, we're not going to desegregate because we're fanatics when it comes to white privilege and trying to elevate whitewashed people over other people. We also know that Masons love wordplay, rhyme and reason, like frat and brat. Well, who are the Masons? There's some degree they're related to the feudal lords of old. That's why they've given themselves fancy titles like in their blood, like I am the Duke of Masonry. I am the Grand Patron. You see what I'm saying? They take that stance. Knights, right? People are knighted by the English royal family, for example. And there's knight degrees. There's Knights Templar and Kadosh and what have you. In Masonry. There's all these European symbols in Masonry. They are a white supremacist and token minority assisted organization by their actions and their action-based communication. For example, if the Klan said, hey, we're not white supremacists, you're just assuming that. Would you say, hey, you're right about that? I mean, I don't know what you're about. No. Because by their actions, they're that. Until proven otherwise, we must assume that they are that and describe them as that. As we see that, the LGBT people were involved and Jews were involved, it's not as simple as therefore Nordicism, right? They're not just Northern European supremacists. They also collaborate with Jews and LGBT people. And if we look at it carefully and we see the recent news, this kind of racist white guys in the South, these police officers who got busted and they're sexually assaulted people. We look at the prisons that are full of Klansmen and all the sexual assaults that go on and how this is the Klan, the second Klan was founded by William Joseph Simmons, who was in several dozen fraternities, almost certainly a Freemason. Okay? And they help social engineer the society where people get raped in the Boy Scouts, they get raped in the church to some degree, mind you, and they get raped in the prisons. They could do more to stop it. They do not. Because that's in the cards. That's part of their spirit. Now, I'm going to end this by saying, when you see these females on TikTok, a lot of them are trying to be nice. A lot of times they have long fingernails. They're advertising some. They're fuming me, right? Anyway. They have the same kind of spirit of rejecting righteousness. If a righteous person was to go up to, say a punk rocker and say, hey, why don't you just study morality and pray to God and try to find the way with all your heart, the way to be morally precise, they would reject them. They might say to fuck off. They might say, no, I'm just not interested. They might say, no, you can't tell me, don't judge me. They might say this, are Christians not supposed to judge? They might say things like that. That's that spirit of rejecting moral precision. Telling them to go to church is not the same as telling them to be morally precise. Being morally precise and trying to help them learn to think effectively is the best way to help them. Not telling them to go to church. Churches are just kind of Masonic aligned propaganda institutions of white supremacy, white Jewish and LGBT supremacy. So in a nutshell, Masons are people in the same spirit, no offense to anybody, not to insult them, as a female who's highly materialistic. Okay, this is just me giving the facts here. I'm not trying to break the rules on TikTok. Okay, and they have that kind of bratty rejection of sense. They say, no, we can't because we took an oath, because we're white supremacists, because we're token minorities, they're token minorities, because we're in a privileged group, and why should I give up all that I've worked for? They have that kind of arrogant way of rejecting God, which is the Luciferian spirit, and it's even in Pike's book, it's the Luciferian doctrine. It's the principles of Lucifer and the thinking and the accompanying spirit. So therefore, we can ascertain definitively that they are a Luciferian group and their works overkill it, as well as how they are and how they move and how they think and how obvious it is in their spirit when we analyze them carefully. Thank you.